Hello everybody and welcome. Just went ahead and finished Resident Evil 3 on the stream. Thinking about it now, actually this is the first thing that I'll be uploading on YouTube where I've shaved my head. So yes, I've shaved my head. Anyway, Resident Evil 3. I got to this game a little bit late because I've been playing Persona 5 Royal for the past month. That game took me 122 hours to finish. So it was kind of nice and refreshing to play something really short with Resident Evil 3. Typically I would have just beaten this game in an entire stream, but it took me 2 streams. I ended up finishing the game at about 6 hours right on the dot. And Resident Evil 3, it's had a lot of controversy, almost entirely due to the length, and also them cutting out some stuff from the original Resident Evil 3. There's no mercenaries mode in this game like there was in the original Resident Evil 3. Several areas were cut out, and on top of that, it has some weird tacked on multiplayer. For me, the first thing that I would say is this game is most definitely 155% not worth $60. I would never, ever pay $60 for Resident Evil 3. I'm just gonna start off by saying that you will never catch me playing a baby ass 6-hour long game for $60. That is absurd. You're paying $10 an hour essentially. Some people, I've talked to some people that actually beat it their first time in like 4 hours, which is absolutely insane. I picked up the game for $30, and even then I think like this game is probably a little bit too expensive for $30. I'd say like $20, $25, and you've got yourself a pretty solid package. But let's go ahead and talk about the actual content of the game. This game is obviously a remake of the Resident Evil 3, which was Resident Evil 3 was, funny enough, kind of critically acclaimed as the exact same way that Resident Evil 3 Remake is getting critically acclaimed, where it's really short. It felt like just an add-on to Resident Evil 2. You go through a lot of the same areas from Resident Evil 2. It has less content of Resident Evil 2. And Resident Evil 3 Remake feels the exact same. This game feels like a DLC, like a solid $25 or $30 DLC for Resident Evil 2 Remake. They reuse a ton of assets. Entire locations are reused. The general models for enemies are reused. There's a few new enemies. I will say that though. There are a few new enemies. Some of them are from the DLCs of Resident Evil 2 Remake, but there are a couple new enemies, which I was actually surprised to see and happy to see. Just because I was expecting like just the same shit that was in Resident Evil 2 Remake, but there are a couple new enemies, which is nice to see, that harken back to the classic that I really did not think that I would see in this game. The gameplay is almost entirely the same, with the same inventory management and shooting mechanics and all of that were present in Resident Evil 2 Remake. However, they do have the dodge mechanic, which was in the original and was really pivotal to your success in the original Resident Evil 3. They do have the dodge mechanic in the remake, and the dodge mechanic once again is going to be pivotal to your success in this game, at least on the higher difficulties. I played for my first playthrough on hardcore, which wasn't extremely hard. There were a couple enemies that I had difficulties with, but my main enemy was honestly the camera, which we'll get to in just a little bit. But the shooting mechanics are all the same. The only new thing is that dodge mechanic, which is essentially if you press space right before you're about to get attacked, you will dodge out of the way, and you can utilize this to get past tons of enemies, as well as you're gonna need to use it when you're fighting Nemesis. And Nemesis is I've never understood the love for Nemesis, to be honest. A lot of people really love the character of Nemesis, but I've never really been a fan of him. I've never understood the hype, and in this game I still don't understand the hype. I found him extremely annoying. I didn't find him scary at all, which is something I'll kind of touch on later with the horror aspects, but I didn't find Nemesis to be scary. I found Mr. X to be far scarier, the way that you feel his footsteps thudding around the police station and you never really know where he's gonna be. I really liked how Mr. X was utilized. And in this game, he only comes out at certain points, and basically all of it is scripted. Like the entire time, whenever he comes out, it's scripted. And for me, that kind of just kills it. I really like Jack Baker in RE7 and Mr. X, where it's not necessarily scripted and you just feel like they could be anywhere. Even replaying the games, like I've played RE7 a ton, Jack will still scare me sometimes because he'll just pop out of nowhere, dude. He'll just fucking kick open a door and be like, "Eee, doggy!" And it's fucking terrifying, dude, because you don't expect it at all, and it's great. I absolutely love it. Nemesis doesn't really feel like that, and he's so bullet spongy that when you do fight him, it just feels like a chore. Like, it's not scary, it's not fun, it's just kind of annoying. And there was no point for me where I actually felt fear from Nemesis at all. Like, he has a couple jump scares, but like, I was never once afraid of him. And speaking of being afraid, this game is not a horror game. It is really weird because Resident Evil 2 was a horror game, I would say. I would say Resident Evil 2 was a horror game. And Resident Evil 7 is definitely a horror game. That game is really spooky. But Resident Evil 3 is not a horror game. This feels more like a Resident Evil game made around like the time where Resident Evil 5 and Resident Evil 6 were made, where it's like an action game that has like a ton of cheese. Carlos, the male character that you can play as in the game, he says a bunch of cheesy one-liners and jokes that remind me of Jake from RE6 or Leon from RE4. Like, he has like that witty comedy that you would expect from those games, but that type of comedy is not prevalent at all in RE2 Remake, and it's not prevalent at all in RE7, because those games are a lot more serious and they're a lot more spooky. And this game is just not spooky at all. It is just straight up action. They call Jill, like a million times, they call her a super cop, because it's like, how the fuck is this bitch alive? Like, she's in like 17 explosions, 14 car wrecks, falls a total of like 52 stories if you were to add up all of the falls in the game. She's getting the shit beat out of her, and she's like completely fine. She's like, yep, I'm good to go now, let's fucking fight. And it's like, but why? Like, what makes her so strong, dude? What happened to her? The only thing that happened to this bitch is she was in the fucking mansion in Resident Evil 1. That's the only thing that she has going for her. But apparently for some reason she's fucking super cop, and her gun handling is far better than Carlos's, which is really weird. Like, she gets extremely accurate very fast. She handles weapons extremely proficiently. It's just weird. And it does feel like you are a super cop, like you're some sort of super soldier going through the fucking apocalypse, taking dudes down, and just whenever you're in a pickle, you can just matrix dodge out of situations. Whereas Resident Evil 2 Remake, you know, you're a rookie-ass cop, you feel fucking like you're helpless, you have to run away a lot, and I'd greatly prefer that type of play in Resident Evil 2 Remake than Resident Evil 3 Remake, where you could just fucking shit on everybody. It doesn't matter. Even on hardcore, I had so much ammo and shit that I was like, at the end, I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll just fill up my entire arsenal with grenades and magnum ammo and shotgun shells, because I just have everything, and I have tons of everything. So yeah, overall, this game is very short. I don't think the characters are very compelling. I actually strongly disliked Jill for like the first 70% of the game, and then like the last 30% she becomes not unbearable, but she's still always a fucking stiff like board, dude. She has no personality. She's just, you want to talk about a Mary Sue, you know, like Rey from Star Wars, just a character that is just really good at shit for no reason and doesn't really have a lot of character. Jill Valentine is that in spades. She's just very uninteresting. And yeah, overall, I thought the game was enjoyable, but you need to know what you're getting when you get into it. You need to expect more of like a Resident Evil 5 type of vibe where it's more action paced, a little bit cheesy. You need to expect you know, a lot of the same stuff to be reused from Resident Evil 2 Remake, and you need to expect the length because the length is very, very short. 6 hours for my first playthrough, but now that I know what to do, could easily beat this game in sub 2 hours and like not even really speedrunning it. So all in all, to give this game a rating, I would say if you're rating this as a $60 title, I would legitimately give this a 3 out of 10. Like, I'm not even joking, like a 3 or a 4 out of 10. I'm not joking. I think it's below average. I think it is really, really bad for $60. Me picking it up for 30, or if you can find it for 20 or 25, I'm gonna evaluate it at that price point because I think that's a lot more fair to do. Well, actually, it's pretty fair to judge it as a $60 title because that's what they priced it as. But I'm gonna judge it as a $30 title since that's how I picked it up. And for a $30 title, I think it's enjoyable enough. I would say it's a solid like 6 out of 10. It's barely above average. I don't see myself really playing it a ton more other than playing the new difficulties and going through that. But all in all, oh, I didn't even touch on the camera, dude. The camera is dookie, okay? I didn't even touch on the camera work. It's doo-doo. I have my FOV all the way to the max, and I was just constantly looking at Jill's fucking teeth whenever I was running away from dudes. You constantly have to run away from Nemesis and then turn around and shoot him because you're running away and dodging, but also you want to get a shot in, and the camera just zooms into your fucking molars, dude, and you're just really inspecting her dental work as this camera is just shoving it in your face. It is terrible. Even with the highest FOV, it's dookie. But anyway, overall, I'd give it a solid like 6 out of 10. If you can find it for about $30, $25, I think that's a decent price for it. If you're a Resident Evil fan, if you're just somebody looking for like a single player experience, there's a lot better out there for a lot cheaper, and that's gonna give you a lot more length and bang for your buck. So I honestly, I would say Resident Evil 3 as a whole is very, very disappointing. I don't think that this should have been a standalone game. I think it should have just been a Resident Evil 2 DLC. And overall, I was just not very impressed by the title, to be entirely honest. There is one section that's fucking scary for me, though. It was very scary for me, and I really, really enjoyed that one section of the game because it legitimately scared me, and I love being scared. Horror games are my favorite genre of games. I would have loved to get more of that spooky factor in Resident Evil 3, but there's one section, anybody that watched the stream will know that section, or anybody that just knows me in general will know what section, that was fucking terrifying for me, and I loved every second of it. I loved being spooked. And I'm very excited to play that section again because that section was actually a horror game and it was very fun. But those are my thoughts. All in all, solid 6 out of 10 if you're picking it up like bargain bin, $25, $30. $60, I'd say do not touch it. Do not touch it unless you're some super fan that fucking plays every Resident Evil game a million times and you have hundreds of hours in them, but that is like a 0.001% of the population, right? So if you're a regular human being out there, I'd say, you know, wait for a sale, or you could do what I do, which is buy games for like $50, $60 on your PlayStation or your Xbox, and then list them on eBay, sell them for $50, $60, then you're only paying a couple bucks to play the game. There you go. There's my big brain advice for you on how to play games on the cheap. It's what I did with Persona 5 Royal, even a month later, and boom, got my money back. Easy peasy, dude. But yeah, that'll do it for me. Thank you to everybody for watching. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and me and my bald head will see all of you in the next video on Stream Rooney. Bye bye.